Well, welcome back to Steve Rod Reviews. Today, we're talking about welding, flux core welding. Let's get to it right now. Well, today we're going to discuss flux core welding. I realize a lot of people who watch YouTube channels and they're seeing people welding. They're mostly seeing them use gas metal arc welding, and some people call it MIG welding, metal inert gas welding. I've been welding for over 40 years, and I have welded with the MIG welder, thousands and thousands of truck frames, and for an industrial use, they're just terrific. There's two main differences between the flux core and the MIG welding, and today I'm going to tell you my opinion. I'm not here to sell machines or to sell wire or to sell anything. I'm giving you my own opinion that I'm saying for the average do-it-yourselfer, flux welding is the best. Now, we're talking about the wire itself, which is, I'll show you, I got a little piece here, and it's called flux core. And all it is a wire like this, and for mine, it's 045. And I'll tell you something, yeah, you're going to see a lot of YouTube channels that tell you, oh, you have to have a gas bottle, and you have to hook it up, and for you that are new to the welding scene, this is the kind of tip you would get on a flux core machine, and there's no diffuser on the end. So the ones that have the gas would actually have what's called a diffuser on the end, and the gas from the bottle on the back of your welder puts gas through here and shields the welding. And this wire does the exact same thing, but there's some downfalls to this type of welding, and there's some upside to MIG welding. Now, if you are going to use your welder for lighter gauge materials, and especially body work, or where your welds have to look critically appealing and really nice fancy pants welding, well then go for the gas. But for me, I'm saying the flux core is all the average do-it-yourselfer needs, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so let's get right down to the brass tacks here. First of all, if you want to do MIG welding, you gotta buy or lease or rent a tank on the back of your machine. That's an added cost, and it's not very user-friendly in the wind. So you can see in the back here I've got a fan, and quite often I take that fan and I point it right at where I'm welding if I don't have my exhaust chute on, and like during the summertime when the door's open, and I could have as strong as wind as possible and it will not affect the weld. Where if you do have MIG welding set up with a bottle, yeah, try to do some welding outside in the wind. It's not very user-friendly at all. And I'm going to show you the weld that I did. And just you guys take a look and see. Now, of course, with flux core, you're going to have a lot more smoke. And I would say, yeah, you're going to have more porosity and some more slag. And you're going to have more, I would say, cleanup to do. But let's just take a look at this. This is the piece I did right here. Now, I just stabbed that on there real quick. It was nothing fancy. And for me, most of the welding I do is not all that fancy. I'm welding iron, and I'm not in an industrial atmosphere. I find way too many people by themselves a welding setup with MIG, and tell you what, unless you're doing body work, forget it, because if you don't mind a little bit of splatter, a little bit more porosity, but I've been welding for 40 years using the flux core, and a lot of people aren't going to like to hear that, because guess what? A lot of these places that you're visiting on YouTube, well, they're selling you machines as well, and they're selling you the idea. And I'm not buying it. I've had great success with flux core. I will continue to use flux core, and I'd love to hear your opinions whether you actually use flux core or whether you've been sold on the MIG process itself, even though it's more appealing to look at. Is it the right choice? So let's take a look at my Lincoln welder here. It's a 240 volt, and I'm going to show you the chart on the side of it. and maybe you just might think about FluxCore might be a better choice. So let's take a look at that next. Okay, so here we have the chart here from Lincoln Electric, and we have for stainless steel, aluminum settings. Now, if you take a look at here, you will see that the gas shielding. We get down the bottom here, this is your FluxCore, no gas shielding. The only one that we're really interested in here is welding steel, which is this one right here. So if you go across and you see this pattern here, that means not recommended, and really they're telling the truth. So these are the thicknesses up here of your steel all the way across, or whatever material you're looking at, and you start at 24 gauge all the way to 5/16. We take a look at the gas shielding, and you go across here and you could see as the letters get higher is the temperature range on your settings on your welder that go up, and for mine is a maximum of E. So if you are using gas shielding tank on the back of your welder, the most you could go is 12 gauge, and this is the thickness right here, right? 2.5 millimeter. Now, they do not recommend anything past that, from number 10 to 5/16. They don't recommend anything past that. So now we go to the FluxCore welding. They don't recommend anything at the bottom end, which is 24 gauge to 20 gauge. But with the MIG process, it's recommended. So now, what does the average person weld? Well, I'll tell you what the average person welds. From 18 gauge to 5/16. That's about what the average person welds. And I'm using 45, and it goes all the way to 5/16. And I've welded thicker than that with multiple passes and never had a problem. Now, if you go with the 35 gauge wire, 35 thou, they only recommend up to 10 gauge. So you can see there is a huge difference in welding capability between using a MIG welder with shielding gas, which is a maximum of 12 gauge here, but it goes all the way down to 24, and the opposite happens when you use gasless FluxCore. And as you could see, as far as I'm concerned, the average person who's a do-it-yourselfer is going to be welding 18 gauge to 5/16. Well, thanks for joining me here today. I hope you found that interesting, and I would surely like to see the comments down below whether you agree with this or not. Because to tell you the truth, yeah, there is so much information out there on convincing everybody that FluxCore welding is bad somehow. And for me, I think it's a no-brainer. It's so much less expensive to get into the hobby and not so complicated on your wallet. And that's the main thing. A lot of people are deterred by getting into welding because it can be quite expensive. Now, in the future, I'm going to do some more welding, and I'm going to talk about different processes as well. So, thanks for joining me here today. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back again, and let's do some more welding and have some more fun. Cheers.